let's try this again. It looks like a good angle. It's a cloudy Tuesday evening in central Pennsylvania. Still daylight out there, which is why I haven't been coming down here to the basement as much. And other reasons, I just haven't been doing these random hangouts. Personally, I'm getting pretty excited. I'm leaving Friday for a cruise to Alaska. Something I've been wanting to do, a cruise for many years. And a whole group of friends from Arizona are going, and they found me a roommate, so how could I refuse? Been planning this for about 10 months. Bought a lot of stuff for it. Got my first passport. So, all in all, I'm pretty excited. I don't know what's going to be happening with the bluegrass DJs. There was some misunderstanding about the way, about some distribution of things that shouldn't have gone out, did. But I enjoyed all those hangouts while they lasted. And the association's still going well, and I said it wrong. It is now the Association of Bluegrass Broadcasters. Okay, as far as the station's concerned, I have been a little bit slow. I haven't put the new releases on that I listed the new releases like I should, and I did not do the vocal things, the audio inserts for the top 3 and the birthdays. So I have a little catching up to do, and I really should sit down and try and calculate the mid-year list for the top 20. I shouldn't admit it's manipulated, but it is slightly. I just can't get anybody to vote. But I'm still out there putting out the best music I can find, past and particularly present. It has amazed me over the past few years how much good music out there is not being sent to the masses. Bluegrass in particular, but also Western swing and Americana. I was in an interesting Facebook conversation the other night. Buddy Dave Martin was talking about the quality of performance at the Tony Awards and said he wishes some of the CMA people would look on and take it as clues how to do something. And everybody bandied back and forth. My point was, I wish that we could get a televised outlet for the Bluegrass Awards. I still have to watch the new Music City Roots show, the television version. And I've also been guilty of not tuning in the live radio version, the video versions on Wednesday evening. But I think our station shows the televised versions Saturday at 11 p.m. after Austin City Limits, as long as it's a month that's not pledge break. I like PBS. I like the lack of commercials in that. But do we have to pay for it with 1 out of 4 nights begging? And then the shows that they do show are so far outdated, half the people in them are dead. But I think PBS is probably going to be one of our best outlets, continue to be one of our best outlets on a more national basis. I hear about all the good stuff on RFD radio and TV, and I have listened to a few clips from there, but I don't get to see the whole program. We are on Comcast, and we get a ton of stations, but we don't get that. And my understanding is a lot of the people that have Dish TV, as soon as the weather gets bad, you lose your signal. It's like you may have 100 times channels you had back in the 50 years ago, when you were lucky to have 3 or 4. But the signal sometimes isn't any better. Yes, I come from that era. I was born in 58, and by the time I was watching TV around 62 or 63, we had a CBS station and we had an NBC station. And sometimes they got a few other things in at random. That's how I got to see the Flintstones. Our local PBS station was founded about 1965, WPSU. I certainly was a fan of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I remember in 1969 when Sesame Street premiered. We didn't get ABC. Our neighbors who were in the military and rented a house, they got cable. And I remember it was probably Halloween 1966, 65 or 66. It had to be 66. I went up and Batman was on. And I remember when I was hospitalized in early 66, seeing the Addams Family and a couple of those shows. Expanded cable came our way about 1968. My grandmother had cable. We didn't. We still had the free stations, and if you were lucky, you could pull in the ABC from Harrisburg. But I spent many a night down at her house watching TV. And it wasn't necessarily by choice. At that time, my parents were into square dancing and round dancing. Plus, my brother was on the varsity football team. So they were out quite a few evenings. And God bless my grandmother for being there for me and my younger brother. So any given Friday or Saturday night, we were likely to be down at her house watching whatever was on. And I remember Saturdays in particular because you could tune in at 7:30, catch the dating game and the newlywed game, and then switch over to all the sitcoms on CBS. My Three Sons, Green Acres, Petticoat Junction, and the brief run of Pistols and Petticoats. And then later on, a couple of years, when the New York station started coming in, one of them actually had a afternoon video program called Now Explosion. And they figured out videos for some of the top rock songs around 1968 and 69. The groups weren't necessarily in them. Sometimes they were. They were probably tapes of clips of live performances. And sometimes they were just people and the music was attuned to it. But I was surprised to find later on that the evolution of the video actually went back to the 30s and 40s. Pre-television, when you went to the movies, part of the lineup was what they called Snyders and officials. I think the Snyders, yeah, the officials were the older ones in the 40s, and the Snyders came in and went for the 50s. Went to the movies, and they saw what they might have heard on radio from the likes of Tues Jun, the Mills Brothers, and Cab Calloway. Trying to remember some of the white acts that were there, but it slips my mind. But I think Peggy Lee was on some of the other series. I did learn a lot when the cable expanded, because even though we didn't have it in the house, when we went down there and to places, that was my first exposure to movies pre-1960. We had WOR out in New York and Channel 9 and Channel 11 out in New York. And you know those stations put on a lot of good movies. I guess they did on Channel 5 too, but Channel 9 and Channel 11 in particular. That was the era where every Sunday morning around 11:30 there was an Abbott and Costello picture on. Or Channel 9 would have a movie of the week and they'd run it 4 or 5 nights straight. See what's happening here. Nothing more on the boards. Talking about pictures. And a lot of interesting things coming up the last couple of days in the bluegrass field. A few new albums. Some with issues in that. The chairman of the IBMA board of directors is trying to rustle up some funds for the IBMA by running a Kickstarter campaign or an Indiegogo where you contribute for the expenses to finish the album, and among the things you can get is at the $60 membership in the IBMA. My thought on that is it's weird because right now, for the end of June, the IBMA is offering a discount on membership, which means if you're a professional member, you'd be paying $60 anyway. If you're not a professional member, you're going to pay $20 more than you would. And you have to be a professional member by their standards. Nevertheless, I am not about to drop my membership from IBMA. I just renewed for 2 years. I like the aspect of voting, and despite certain people and all, I really love going to convention. It's my chance to be seen. And it's probably one of my best sources for music for the year. Being me not getting around, I don't see too much. Since I went to Raleigh last fall, I had one night where I found a ride over the mountain towards Lewistown for a show with Remington Ride and another regional group in November. When I went down to Nashville in March, I got to go to a benefit show for Tony Rice, and I saw a few things, saw a few folks. I think that's the first I've truly seen the Daly and Vincent show in about 3 years. And I enjoyed more and whatever it was, the people that had the Old MacDonald Stole the Farm song. And I got to say hello to Tim O'Brien again. But getting back to the other night, we were having all these discussions about awards and that, and we have to remember that IBMA, as well as the Country Music Association, are trade associations. So they support the labels, they support us, but what we do, all they can do is try and encourage what is going on and not have much influence, or they'll lose their status. And my other comment there is we got to keep promoting Western Swing. The guy that started the comment, Dave Martin, his wife Carolyn is the reigning female vocalist of the year at the Western Swing Association Awards. And Barbara Martin, who I've known for a number of years and runs a Western Swing magazine, was also in on that conversation. And it's very crazy because Barbara Martin, and like I say, we go back quite a bit. And one night, one of our friends had just come to town for his birthday. His birthday is a couple of days after mine, so I ended up tagging along. It was me, it was Dale Pushert, it was Barbara, and it was Ted and Linda Branson. Ted Branson, who was the disc jockey of the year at that organization. We went out for Italian, and then we went down to a bar that's now a karaoke bar to see Red Volkart. And best wishes to Red Volkart and his new wife Kathy, who were married on the 31st of May. I had no idea. Anything was happening there. I haven't seen Red in a while, because the last two times I was in Austin, when I was down there with Cindy in October, we ended up in Houston on Sunday night, so we didn't get back to see Hay Bale. And when I was there in January, he was down in Australia. But it's so funny because I never thought of him the type to get married again or get married the way he talked about it. Anytime some of our friends were getting married. Particularly Dale Watson, who's been through about 3 or 4. Speaking of which, Dale is in Nashville tonight, playing the Station Inn. He's been on perpetual tour now for, I believe it's several weeks. South, north, and back south. Karen's seen a few shows with him. She'll be there tonight. Karen finally got to see the Time Jumpers. I think she's seen most of the people in the Time Jumpers in different configurations over the years, but not as the Time Jumpers. So she went down to do that last night. Work a little bit today on her Homer and Jethro book, and then she'll catch Dale tonight before she heads back to Louisville. Karen's been having some health issues, and she jokes that while I'm cruising next week, she'll be dealing with doctors. I hope she makes out well because she's dealing through VA. But I think she's established. I'm cruising here while I'm talking. I'm anxious to see what happens on ship. I guess we pull out of Vancouver about 5 p.m. on Sunday evening, and dinner is at 5:30. Cindy had a heck of a time with that. The guy she was supposed to settle it with would never confirm things that she wanted. She wanted to make sure that all 12 of us were reserved for early seating. So today, about 5 days before we sail, she thinks she has it resolved. We shall see. I'm also hopeful that we all can get to Vancouver on schedule on Saturday. I'm hearing such crazy stories about the airlines that it just seems to get worse all the time. And it's not just weather. Sometimes it's mechanical. And I'm flying out US Air, which is not my favorite, but it's as cheap as I can get. Well, actually, it's an Alaska Airlines flight out of Philadelphia. So I'll be heading out of here early Friday afternoon. My flight from State College leaves about 3:30. I have an hour and a half between flights in Philadelphia, which is comfortable. I have a room near the train station in Seattle, so I might be able to go look out my window a little bit, but not too much. My bus out of Seattle leaves about 11:15. I should get into Vancouver around 3 in the afternoon. Cindy's flights are supposed to get her in at 4. Everybody's staying at the same hotel Saturday night. And I guess we head for the boat around noon on Sunday. We get to board around 2, and the ship sails at 5. And as I understand it, Monday is a travel day along the Inner Passage. Tuesday is Ketchikan or whatever. I can't pronounce them. I have to look at my full agenda. But I think our days that we have option to go off the boat are Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm not sure about Thursday and Friday. And Saturday we make our way back to Seward. We get off the boat early Sunday morning. We have a few hours in Anchorage. Some people are headed back Sunday. Some of us are flying back to Seattle on Monday. And then I got a red eye back home. Cindy's talking about us trying to get up and get in the pool and the hot tub early to stretch our muscles before breakfast. I have to do some serious walking because I'm getting a little out of shape. My blood sugar levels have been up somewhat. There was a while they rarely got out of the 30s, and now if I'm lucky I get them down to the one. There was a time when if I was lucky, okay, there was a time a couple months ago where the highs were in the 130s. Now I'm lucky if the lows are in the 140s. I've been laying around a lot, playing the things I shouldn't and all that. And I'm also concerned, am I going to be able to stay away from things without going nutty? Because you cannot do Wi-Fi on the ship. So I'll be catching up whenever I get into ports. And I think I have enough space to take a laptop. As for the station, about the only thing that's not going to be up to date are Brian's front page bluegrass reports. Nope, no questions. The bluegrass trio shows were done ahead, so as soon as this week's episode's over tomorrow night, I can just load next week's onto the thing and it'll be ready to roll. As for new releases, I'll be able to cover those until Sunday morning. And then we shall see what happens. There does seem to be a lot of bluegrass coming out about now. New album from a member of Blue Highway. New single from the Royce. And coming soon, the sophomore album from Flat Lonesome. I was lucky I was able to see Flat Lonesome last year. It happened that the night that I went to the Station Inn on one of my trips to Nashville was a Thursday that, and once a month WSM has a double shot on Thursday at the Station Inn. So they were opening for Joe Mullins and the Radio Ramblers. Joe Mullins and the Radio Ramblers. I think they're one of my favorite bluegrass groups. I latched on to Rambler's Call probably the end of 2009, early 2010. And the first time I saw them, I went into one of those postage stamp size rooms for a showcase at the 2010 IBMA. I noticed how he shook hands with everybody. And as I told one other time, in 2012, the day of the IBMAs, I went for the pre-award lunch and without looking asked if I could sit at the table, and after I was seated I realized I was seated with his crew. And I can tell you they're obviously radio savvy. He's a disc jockey as well as a performer, but they're also media savvy. They're also digital media savvy. When they put out a single or an album, if I have something that's on the album, I can tag them on Twitter, and there's a good chance that within an hour they'll be the person I hear from. As you can tell by the way I'm hesitating with the dead air and all that, speaking and doing live programming is not my strongest suit. But my ear is tuned for the good music, and I have the savvy to understand the computer aspects of things. I will say that Live 365 makes it very easy for me to load. I could probably broadcast live if I wish, but I like the ease of automatic. I don't think I could have handled broadcasting live while I'm still working. And I'm fine. I had the station when I was not working. Hard to believe it's been 6.5 years. And I can't say how much longer it'll be. I'm very concerned about the royalty issues and the cost of things. Because if there is disagreement about music from prior to 1972, it affects me because I believe in music prior to 1972. Most of Real Country runs from the 1920s to the present. And an important part of my mission is getting music out there that the younger generation will not necessarily look for, but is important to the history of all aspects of country music. I truly love the Western swing, and I really enjoy that hour, programming that hour, although I could probably freshen it up more than I do. But Western swing has some distribution problems. I will say that bluegrass does a pretty good job. Most people go to Airplay Direct or know how to reach it, but I don't know probably half the people I should in Western swing. I'm working on it. That's why I joined the AWA, and I'm hoping that maybe this year I'll get a nomination, get a serious nomination for a DJ award. I don't know how long the AWA has been giving DJ awards. Once you get it, that's it. But the last couple of guys that have gotten it are pretty prominent. One's on the AWA board and is based in West Texas and knows that. And this year it was my buddy Ted Branson, who broadcasts a lot of roots stuff, but has a particular interest in Western swing. He's in Austin, and he and his wife, when they travel, they go to the Western swing shows all over Texas and New Mexico, etc. And every year in October, they would bring Johnny Cubiello to town and have a birthday party. I was at one probably 2009 at Patsy's Cowgirl Cafe. And that was a crazy evening because people kept going backstage. It shouldn't have been. It was so packed, and it was hard for me to find a seat. And I was lucky to find a ride home because I had an incident. I dropped a little bit of cash in the taxi on the way down. Well, I was lucky I didn't get stuck. And that was the Only time I've seen Billy Matta so far. I'm pretty impressed by Billy Matta. And I'm also impressed that one of his band members and his promoting band member is a local guy, Rocco. And it's so funny because Rocco probably comes up here to Pennsylvania maybe once a year. And of all things, one time when I was going down to Austin, I'm there in the University Park Airport in my Cornell Herd jacket. He says, "Are you going to Austin?" I said, "Yes." "Do you live there?" I said, "No, I'm local." And when he introduced himself, I said, "Oh yeah, we're connected on Facebook." I think that was one of the 2 or 3 times I have had that jacket on in Center County and somebody recognized Cornell's name. One other time somebody recognized it at Walmart and I didn't know. But that jacket has been a prowess. And getting back to steel guitar, as you might expect, Detroit to Dallas is a pretty major route. So there were about 3 years where I'd be taking a plane through Detroit to go to the convention. The first year, I had picked up a Chicago pan pizza, and I was sitting in the waiting area, and these guys were talking things like might be related. So whenever they got on the plane, we all got on the plane, I started talking and they realized who I was. Because then, like now, even though I'm inactive, I'm a moderator on the steel guitar forum for music things not related to steel guitar. So the second year, there was a mass number of us. I think it was them, a couple of spouses, a couple other couples, and a guy that sat next to me. I think the third year is back to just a few of us again. People talk about nobody dresses formal anymore to fly. Sadly, it's true. But the nature of flying these days is not to look fancy, but to be comfortable. I'm fortunate I've never been on a flight that has had somebody comfortable to the XSXS. But my general clothing for flights is pants and t-shirts, and carry my jacket if needed. Actually, I carry my jacket anyway because depending where I'm going, I might be going from warm to cold, or vice versa. And often I end up stuffing it in the luggage. And the big deal is I travel with a CPAP machine. In my last trip to Nashville, I don't travel with that machine packed as tight as I could. and where the hose hooks up, some things snapped a little bit. So I'm barely able to keep the hose on it right now. I tried ordering a new machine before this trip, but the complications with insurance and all that these days is crazy. Last week I called, and the doctor's office that was supposed to send it, that person had been on vacation, so she sent it down to the state college office. They then had to get approval from the insurance company, and they have to get approval from the main office in Nashville. I realized it would probably take, excuse me, I realized it would probably take a few extra people, but why they can't keep everything local and except for the billing is beyond me. Anytime I want supplies, I gotta call Nashville, or they call me every few months and I tell them what I want or need. And it's back and forth because I've been dealing with several insurance policies since I stopped working. So I've been chatting here about 50 minutes. No signs of any viewers, questions, or comments. So I think we'll cut it off and say good night. Maybe I'll be back again at 11. Bye.